So good to see your faces. I hope everyone's new year is starting off well. I feel like it's going so fast and furious already. I want to welcome you to NewStory Church. My name is Tom. I'm one of the pastors here. We are in for a treat. Today we have Pastor Johnny Baker speaking to us for the second time this week. Can we give him a big hand? So good. So looks so handsome, you know, Johnny, you're so handsome. My goodness. My mom still doesn't approve of the tattoos. But anyways, you're a pastor nonetheless. Anyways, he's a great pastor, a great friend. Pastor Johnny, for those of you who may not know, maybe today's your first day here at NewStory Church. He serves as the global pastor, the executive global director as well of what we affectionately call CR. That stands for Celebrate Recovery. This is a Christ-centered recovery ministry. Now, when I say the words recovery, maybe you're thinking of substance abuse. I know that's what Johnny, I've talked about this with you before. Like, that's what I thought. I was like, oh no, I don't need to go to Celebrate Recovery because I don't struggle with alcoholism. I don't do drugs or anything like that. But here's the deal. Most of the people that go through, and by most of the people, I mean over 5 million people have gone through this ministry, through the STEP studies, over 5 million throughout the globe. And most of them do not struggle with substance abuse. Many of them, like myself, when I first started, Johnny, you were my STEP study leader. Many of us, anger management, right? Codependency, people pleasing, what others think about me, control. Does anyone struggle with control? I struggle with control, right? So we can go there for a lot of reasons. I love one of the things that you'll be hearing about over and over again is, do you struggle with any hurts? Do you struggle with any hang-ups? Do you struggle with any habits? Because if you do, Celebrate Recovery is for you. As a matter of fact, Celebrate Recovery has been a strong part of NewStory Church pretty much from the beginning. Johnny, I think you were our first guest speaker when we kind of first launched in the tents of LATTC, just a couple blocks down. And we have a Celebrate Recovery ministry here at NewStory Church. They meet every Monday, always have. Even throughout the pandemic, they met through Zoom, through online, and you'll hear about how that has changed lives. And tomorrow will be much of the same. They'll meet every Mondays at 7 p.m. And so we would love to welcome and invite everyone here to that. If you struggle with any hurts, hang-ups, and or habits. And here's the deal. I thought today might be a great day before we invite Johnny back up to conclude how to grow in 2024. Last week he talked about things that you want to stay away from, and so you want to catch up on that message. Today he's going to he'll be talking about 5 steps to help us move forward. But before we do that, I thought it'd be best if we heard just from people that we do life with here and now, that worship with us every week. I want to invite Daniel and Caitlin to come on forward. Let's give them a big hand. Let's hear how God has used Celebrate Recovery to help them in their lives.
Okay. Hi, my name is Caitlin, and I'm a beloved daughter of my Heavenly Daddy. I am in recovery from abandonment issues, fear, anxiety, control issues, and anger management.
Hi, everyone. My name is Daniel. I'm a grateful follower of Jesus Christ. And I'm working in recovery from pride, stubbornness, anger, control issues, and people-pleasing.
I'm a 5th-generation Christian in my family and also a pastor and missionary kid. I was raised in a God-loving, spiritually blessed family, always feeling loved by God and my family. I never doubted the existence of God or His love for me.
I was born in a small town in Ohio into a loving Christian family and a loving church. As the only Korean family in Mansfield, I felt I had to be a good representative of my family, of Koreans and all Asians in general. I was a straight-A student. I played piano, was involved in musicals, sports, choir, and any extracurricular activities that were available. I felt loved and validated whenever I was praised for my achievements. It built a wall of pride around me and a false sense of control. I felt like I was the one in charge of my life.
Being a planner who had plans A, B, C, and D. With the control issues, I was driving my life and I thought I was a great driver. I thought I had my life under control until I fell into hell of a hell when I found out that my marriage had failed after 7 years. I was 13 weeks pregnant with my second child. All of a sudden, I had no control over my life, and the plan I had no longer made any sense. In the chaos, only thing I could do was holding on to my Heavenly Daddy. That's when my real personal relationship with God truly started. God took me through one day at a time with voices, dreams, and visions. He showed me his plans, timing, and ways are always so much better than I can ever imagine. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and the future, Jeremiah 29:11. I just have to be still and know that he is my God. God gave me the hope that since he delivered me from this darkest pit, he will surely deliver me from any other hardships. And he got me through my life as a single working mom with 2 young children with no help for following 8+ years.
For me, college was a life-changing experience, and not all for the better. I got my first B, which was my first slice of humble pie. College was also completely different than the sheltered backwoods of Ohio. I fell to the temptations of the world around me and drifted away from God. Because I believed that he would love me as long as I was a good Christian, going to church, obeying the commandments, reading the Bible, I felt so much shame and unworthiness to even come back to him. I spent the next 20 years running away and hiding from God in the church. I moved from job to job, city to city. I got married in 2012 and consequently got divorced several years later. Everything I thought I had built and planned so well in my life went opposite to my plans. By the time the pandemic was in full swing, I was utterly alone, depressed, and empty.
When 2020 hit with the chaos of pandemic, abandoned by my ex-fiancé, breathing unbreathable air due to wildfire, and being in the middle of an earthquake, I was once again lost, overwhelmed, exhausted, and in total panic. I couldn't deal with my life anymore, every aspect of it. That's when God came to rescue me through CR. Like a blessing in disguise, NewStory CR started Zoom meetings due to pandemic, which allowed me to attend CR meetings and step studies while still caring for my young children at home. Especially CR step study walked alongside of my healings from abandonment issues, fear, anxiety, guilt and anger, and control issues towards myself and my children. I was able to look back at my life through the eyes of my Heavenly Daddy and was able to face and name the hurts, habits, and hang-ups by doing personal inventories in Lesson 9, Principle 4, Step 4. As I was learning to trust God to control my life and plan my life, God showed me that he is the ice cream sundae and everything else is just topping on top, that he alone is enough. When I truly believed and recognized that in his perfect planning and timing, God sent me my cherry on top, Daniel, as my husband.
As Caitlin said so eloquently, God had brought us together in his perfect timing. As we started dating, I started to attend church at NewStory and attend CR meetings with her. My first CR meeting, I was in so much denial. I thought, I'm not that bad. There's nothing I need to really change and work on at all. But over time, I started to understand how much hurt I had in my life and then how much I had hurt others. There were habits and hang-ups that I was holding on to that I desperately needed to give up to God. I was broken in my own way, with my own demons, and I needed God to help restore me. I understood that I needed to change, that change was possible with God.
After we got married, my fear of failing marriage again came in full force, which debilitated me to enjoy my new life. The baggage, traumas, and triggers of the past relationship made me question my worthiness of being so loved by loved by my new husband. Realizing I'm no longer the only driver to make decisions and plans for our new blended family gave me so much anxiety. Thankfully, our decisions to be in CR together from the very beginning of our relationship is helping us tremendously. Through CR, Daniel and I are understanding and supporting each other's journey. I don't know where I would have been without our CR weekly meeting sharings and going through the second rounds of step study I co-led. My victories and struggles I get to lay down at CR meetings have changed a lot because my life and circumstance changed so much. But God's faithfulness and how He wants us to be healed and enjoy our lives in Him has not changed.
In my second year of Celebrate Recovery, I started and finished my step study program as well. I started to serve on the worship team for our Monday night meetings in person. I went through Rooted and was baptized in the Pacific Ocean on Easter Sunday. Thank you. Working through the 12 steps, building my community, and Celebrate Recovery has helped me change so much. I'm learning to trust God with my life and to give up everything to Him. I lift my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Psalm 121, 1-2. Together, Caitlin and I continue to work the steps and trust our lives to God more and more every day. Our past, our hurts, our habits, and our hang-ups do not define us. We know that we are not perfect people, but we abundantly receive God's love and grace. We have been blessed to be a part of great communities such as NewStory and Celebrate Recovery. Thank you for letting us share our story with you today.
Oh, I love that. Well, hey, everybody. I'm so glad to be back with you this week. Before I start, I just want to tell you guys, I really love your pastor. Pastor Tom is one of my very best friends. He's somebody that I just, as soon as he came here from wherever, New Jersey or whatever, to here, we connected right away and just became a really close friend of mine. And so it's always an honor to come here. And you guys have a really great guy as your pastor. So, just want to brag on him a little bit. I do want to talk really briefly about Celebrate Recovery. I love Celebrate Recovery. I've been a part of it since the beginning. My parents are the founders of the program. I was there as a teenager, and then after walking away for a while, came back to work on some of my own issues. I'm going to introduce myself the way I do in Celebrate Recovery. When I'm done, I need you to participate. I just need you to say, hi, Johnny, okay? So, hi, my name is Johnny. I'm a grateful believer. I struggle with alcoholism and codependency. Your turn. Okay, so now you're all part of Celebrate Recovery, so come back tomorrow night because you've been indoctrinated, right? So you're all done. So come back tomorrow. No, but as Pastor Tom mentioned, a lot of people do think of Celebrate Recovery as a recovery group just for people with drug addiction or alcoholism. And while it is for those of us who struggle with chemical addiction, only about a third of the people who attend CR come for chemical dependency. Most everybody else comes from a wide variety of different issues. And so I just want to encourage you, if you are thinking about Celebrate Recovery, we're going to talk a little bit more about why you might. If maybe that testimony resonated with you, or if there's something in your life that feels like you just can't get a handle with, we've got a table out in the outside out there, and I would encourage you to stop by, ask a few questions, and maybe just even come on Monday. And just, be there for someone else, right? Like you're just there to support someone else or whatever. Just check it out and just see if maybe it's for you. Because here's what I know. We all have things in our lives that are things that we struggle with, right? We call them hurts, hang-ups, and habits. You've heard that a number of times already in Celebrate Recovery. Hurts are things we all carry around. We've all hurt people. We've all been hurt by people. And they're actually the root. They're the main problem. Most people come to recovery because of a habit. They're drinking, they're eating too much, they're looking at inappropriate images online, they can't stop controlling, they can't stop judging, they can't stop worrying. Whatever those things are, that's the thing that they're doing that they want freedom for. That's usually why people come to Celebrate Recovery. But that's the symptom. That's not the cause, right? If you work on just the habit, you'll get sober, you might stop doing that thing. But if we don't deal with the root cause, we end up missing the whole point. I like to think of it kind of like a potato, right? A potato grows underground, but it has leaves that come above ground. And if you just looked at the soil and you saw the leaves, you might be tempted to cut those off and put them in a salad. And something would happen. You'd get poisoned. You can't eat the leaves of a potato, right? But if you go underground and you get the beautiful, perfect food that you can make into a hash brown or French fries or any kind of mashed potato, I'm getting hungry, then you get to the root of the actual thing. So for those of us, when we come to recovery, when we come to get help, we go to a therapist, we talk to a friend, whatever it is, and we go, there's this problem in my life. If we just deal with the stuff that's on top, it's easy, but it's not getting to the fruit, to the real part of our problem. We all have been hurt, and so what we find is those hurts, if we don't deal with them, face them, they turn into hang-ups. What's a hang-up? A hang-up is a way that we see ourselves, the world around us, or maybe even God. So a hang-up might be, I was told that I wasn't measuring up, and so now I feel worthless. And so now I'm gonna act out of that, and I'll develop habits out of that hang-up. To deal with the truth, we have to get to the hurt. That's what we do in Celebrate Recovery. And so what we're gonna do today is, last week I talked about 3 things that will keep us from growing in 2024. This week what I wanna do is just share a few things that will help us build positive habits or help us stop negative habits in this year. And these are things, they're not all of them original to me. There's things that I've learned in here. And what we have found is that these things are the things that are gonna help us stick to these habits. I don't know if you've heard this, but this year more than ever, I feel like I've heard the message like resolutions don't work and goal setting doesn't work. And it's kind of this idea of like, well, then why try? But we wanna try because for most of us, especially when we set spiritual goals, it's because we wanna grow closer to Jesus. And that's something worth achieving. That's something worth fighting for. And so whatever your goals are, maybe or habits you want to build, maybe if there's a health habit or a financial habit or a spiritual habit, these 5 things are going to help us as we try to build these habits. The first thing that we need to do when we want to start a new habit is to set your identity. For you and I to grow, we need to set our identity. Pastor Craig Rochelle has a book called The Power to Change, and in it he has this line that I think is so great. You do what you think of you. Basically, if you think of yourself in a negative way, you allow negative things to happen. Now, this is not about having a good self-ego or having a good self-image, right? This is about really knowing who you are. You may have been raised by a parent who set unachievable goals for you. The standard was always so high. And every time you didn't measure up, they told you that you were a failure. And now, as an adult, you set goals for yourself or standards for yourself that you can't measure up. And every time you fail, you think, well, that's okay because I'm a failure. It makes sense that I didn't achieve because I was a failure. You may have had a coach in Little League and you had a hard time hitting a ball with the bat. And so he said, you're worthless. You're never going to amount to anything. And so now the voice in your head says, well, of course, you need to allow that in your life because you're worthless. It could be any number of things, but sometimes we see ourselves and it's not a true picture of who we are. And so we need to set our identity. It's why when we identify and celebrate recovery, I don't say, hi, I'm Johnny, an alcoholic. I say, I'm Johnny, I'm a believer who struggles with fill in the blank. Why? Because my identity isn't found in my struggle. My identity is found in my Savior. And so my identity is that I am a child of the King. But how often do I act like it? Most of the time, I think of myself with that negative thought that I've given myself or that's been implanted in me. If we want positive change, we have to change the voice in our head and change the image we see of ourselves. And we can do this because of what Jesus did for us. In Colossians chapter 1, 21 through 22, that is, he said, Paul says, once you were alienated from God and were enemies in your minds because of your evil behavior. But now he has reconciled you by Christ's physical body through death to present you holy in his sight, without blemish and free from accusation. I love this verse because it says that Christ died for you and he died for me so that he could present us as holy. Not present us as becoming holy, not present us as becoming or someday holy, but present us today as holy. Now, when I think of myself, the top 100 words that I would use to describe myself, holy is not on that list, right? I am a sinner and you are a sinner. We will always continue to sin this side of heaven, but it is as if God is saying, I know that, but I'm still gonna see you the way I wanna see you. I still am gonna see you through these eyes. And yet I might identify myself with all of my sins. And God's like, but I don't. Here's the thing, if you think something and God disagrees with you, you're wrong. And so God is saying, I see you as holy, set apart, special, mine. And you see yourself as worthless. I see you as holy, and you see yourself as broken. If we want to have new goals, new habits, we have to set our identity. One way this works, by the way, is just changing the way that we speak. You may have met somebody who's like, their goal is to get healthy. And so they go, yeah, I'm trying to get in shape. And what that does is my identity is somebody who's trying. Instead of saying, oh yeah, I'm someone who works out. I'm trying to quit smoking. I don't smoke. I'm trying to save money. I'm working hard to save money, right? We set our identity and we already kind of say, I'm gonna become the kind of person who does this habit that I'm trying to build. We set our identity. Again, this isn't about tricking ourselves. It's about saying, God has already said it, so I'm gonna believe him. Setting our identity as people who are loved by Jesus. Remember that you do what you think of you. And I'm not saying that it's your fault when bad things happen to you. But I am saying that we can allow those things to come into our lives sometimes when we don't know who we belong to. And so I just want to encourage you to begin here, to set your identity, to remember who and whose you are. And then the next thing we can do when we start something is to start small. Often when we build habits, we have these grand ideas of something we're gonna do. I'm gonna read 100 books in 2024. How many books did you read last year? 0 books. Chances are you're not gonna hit it, right? Or I'm going to read my Bible for 2 hours every morning. How often do you read your Bible now? I don't own one, but I'm gonna start 2 hours tomorrow. You know what I wanna do? I'm gonna run a marathon tomorrow. How much do you run? I don't know. I don't even have shoes, right? It's these goals that we set that are these huge goals, these habits that we set. I'm gonna become this person. But what happens is they can become so big that we don't know where to start. So instead, I wanna encourage you to start small. Instead of saying I'm gonna read 100 books this year, I'm gonna read a book this year. Instead of saying I'm gonna read through the entire Bible this year or spend 2 hours a day in the Bible, I'm gonna read a verse every morning. Now, is reading a verse every morning a quiet time? No. Is it better than not reading any verses? Yes. And what will happen is if you open your Bible tomorrow and you read a verse in the Bible, chances are you're gonna say, I wonder what it says before or under that. And you might read 2. But if you only say, I only have to read 1 verse today, and you do it, congratulations, that becomes a habit. And then later you may wanna add more and more and more. Well, I wanna get better shape. I'm gonna join a gym and become a bodybuilder, or I'm gonna do 1 push-up every day. Is 1 push-up a workout? No. Is it better than no push-ups? Yes. And after you do 1 push-up every day for a while, you might go, I'll do 2 today. And you begin to build this habit. And so as you begin to start small. The goal should be that this new habit, this new thing you're doing takes less than 2 minutes. And just keep starting small. And some of us think, I don't want to do that because it needs to be big, it needs to be powerful. But I want to encourage you to start small. In the book of Zechariah, it says this, do not despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin. So many times we think, I have to get this huge thing done. But it takes a small beginning. So a small beginning may be that you go out and you look at the Celebrate Recovery table and take a pamphlet. That's it. A small beginning may be you call a friend. A small beginning may be that you write down some things that you want to achieve and you break it down. Whatever the thing is, start small. And then even see if you can make that smaller. Because if we set our identity and then we start small, we're on a good opening track. The next thing that we can do to start a healthy habit is to stack your habits. So set your identity, say who you are, start small, and stack your habits. A habit isn't a habit until it's something that we do habitually without thinking, right? So for me, a habit I have in the morning is I come downstairs and I immediately make a cup of coffee. Now it's in a Keurig, and some of you are coffee snobs, and you're judging me right now. I don't care. There's no way I'm doing a 15-minute pour over first thing in the morning. I want to push a button, have a hot cup of coffee. That's all I want, right? Some of you are like, oh, you have to ground your own beans and do that whole thing. I tried that for a while. Keurig, that's all I want. I want caffeine now. But that's a habit. I don't ever come downstairs and go, I wonder if I'm gonna make a cup of coffee today, right? It's just habit. Now, let's say that one thing I wanna do as a habit is I wanna pray more. Well, what I may do is say, I already have the habit of making coffee. I need to start small. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to pray for the amount of time it takes for the Keurig to make my coffee. It's a minute, maybe a minute and a half, and during that time, I'll pray. I'm already gonna make the coffee. That's a habit. The habit I want to do is praying. I'm gonna do it small. Instead of saying I'm gonna go in my closet and pray for 45 minutes a day through all these fancy prayers, for a minute and a half while this coffee makes, I might even be just saying, Jesus, thank you for Keurigs, right? I don't know, but I'm gonna pray during that time, and I'm gonna stack that habit. Eventually, if I do that enough, that's gonna be habitual. I put the coffee in, I sit and I pray. Now what? Stack a new habit on top of that. And you keep going and going and going. So think about something that you already do habitually. Maybe it's a cup of coffee in the morning. Maybe you get home from work and all this stuff comes out of your pockets. If that's it, what's a habit you can do right then? Maybe every morning, first thing you do is check email. Maybe that's a habit to break. Some of you are like, I can't, I'll get fired. I get you, I hear that. But think of a thing that you do when you get to your office. Do you always do whatever? When you get home, when you get to school, think of something you already do that's a habit and then build on that. Because that's how we are able to establish new habits. There's something weird about habits. And one of the reasons why it's so hard to break a bad habit and start a new habit is it all has to do with pain. So a bad habit gives us a reward at the beginning, and then there's pain that's deferred. A good habit is gonna have pain in the beginning, and the reward is deferred. As humans, we want reward and we want to avoid pain. So as we're beginning a good habit, the pain might start early. And that's why, by the way, this is so important to start small and to stack it, because if you try to do something huge on its own, chances are the pain is gonna get too much. So let's say that you wanna get out of bed earlier for whatever, I don't know why you would wanna do that. I like to sleep in, I love sleeping in. But let's say you're somebody, you're like, I need to get up an hour earlier every day. Chances are that's gonna be really hard to do right away. And so what you may wanna do is start small and do a 15-minute earlier alarm. It's hard to stack this one, but stay with me. So you're gonna set the alarm 15 minutes earlier so you can get out of bed. That's going to cause some pain, right? Because you're gonna be a little groggier. You might get a little tired earlier in the day or at night. It starts some pain, but the reward will be that you had 15 extra minutes to get the job done or to do something extra in the morning. But the pain happens immediately. The reward is later. Let's say you decide you're gonna start exercising a little bit at a time. The pain is right here. The reward is gonna you're gonna be like, but I ate 3 salads and I jogged twice. Why is it still this, right? And you're gonna go, it's gonna take some time. On the other side, a bad habit, the pain is put off and the reward happens now. The problem with the bad habit is we need to keep getting more and more and more of it for the reward to happen, but the pain gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so often it's so hard to start a good habit and break a bad habit, all because of pain and reward. And so stacking our habits helps us grow into it. One of my favorite sayings, a friend of mine, Rodney, he said, instead of going into it, let's grow into it. And I love that phrase because often it's like, I want to be this person. I got to grow that way. I want to achieve this dream. I have to grow into it. And so one way we can do that is by stacking our habits. Listen to what 2 Peter 1:5-8 says. For this very reason, make every effort to add to your faith goodness, and to goodness knowledge, and to knowledge self-control, and to self-control perseverance, and to perseverance godliness, and to godliness mutual affection, and to mutual affection love. For if you possess these qualities in increasing measure, they will keep you from being ineffective and unproductive in your knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. Here's what I love. Add to. It's not saying have all these qualities day one. It's saying add to, stack these. If you've got some goodness, some faith, add some goodness. If you've got some goodness, add some knowledge, right? We're stacking those habits. So think of something you do habitually and then add something that you want to do to it. Sooner or later, those habits actually become one habit. And so as we do this, you can see if we set our identity, I'm somebody who does this thing, right? I start small. So instead of trying to do it all at once, I'm allowed to grow into it. I forgot what my third one was now all of a sudden. Sorry about that. Now I lost my notes. I'm gonna stack these habits. And then the fourth thing is I'm going to stay connected. This is a huge reason Celebrate Recovery is so effective. We stay connected. None of what we do is individual when it comes to Celebrate Recovery. Yes, you can go through a program by yourself, but it's gonna work a lot better if you have a group of people around you. And this is true, by the way, even if you're like, I don't ever need to be in Celebrate Recovery, I just wanna achieve these goals. You're gonna get better results if you bring other people into it. If you wanna do something and you say, would you hold me accountable? And would you ask me how I'm doing? And on the other side of that, would you encourage me to do a good job? And by the way, what's something I can encourage you in or hold you accountable to? That's gonna give you better results because we're meant to be in relationships with each other. When we try to do things on our own, it's just us keeping us accountable. I don't know about you, but I can talk myself into a lot. I can say, Johnny, you've worked really hard today. You should sit on the couch and relax. You're right, Johnny, I should. I did work really hard today. And by the way, you should eat something delicious while you do it. You're right, I should eat something delicious while I do it. What else should I do, right? And all of a sudden, but if I have other people who are like, wait, what do you mean? What do you mean? You sat on the couch 3 days. Is that really what you want to do? Right? You have other people who can speak into your life, who hold you accountable. It's why small groups like Rooted, groups like Celebrate Recovery are going to be so helpful because you're not trying to do it on your own. You're going to have other people who can walk alongside you, who can ask you hard questions, who can speak truth into your life, who can just be there when you're crying and say, I'm just going to sit with you. You ever have somebody when you're really down who doesn't try to fix it, they just sit next to you and let you be sad? That's such a gift. On the other hand, have you ever laughed so hard with somebody, you hurt yourself because you're both going through good times? But we can't do that if we're not in community. We need to stay connected to other people. By staying connected to other people, we have a better chance of doing the things that we want to do. Ecclesiastes 4, 9 through 10 and verse 12 say, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and have no one to help them up. Though one may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves, and a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. You and I were not meant to be on our own in our Christian walk. We just weren't. If you look at the early church, they did everything together. They lived in community. The disciples of Jesus walked together, right? We were not meant to live these lives where we're just always alone in our houses. It's one of the reasons why the pandemic was so devastating, because we were so disconnected. Thank God that we had tools like Zoom. But when we were so isolated, it could really hurt. So what we need to do is really make sure that we stay connected. If you don't have a church home yet, keep coming here to NewStory. Make this your church home, because the people here are gonna love you and they're gonna help you on your walk. They're not gonna be here just to be like, oh, really? They're gonna be a part of it. So I wanna encourage you to stay connected to other people. Maybe you have a really good friend, and that good friend is somebody that you tell everything to both ways. Man, lean into that friendship. How many of you, don't raise your hands, but the older you get, the harder it is to maintain friendships, right? I just know for me, it takes a lot of work. I'm an introvert, so I can kind of be cool being alone for a while, but then I start acting weird, and so I need to be around other people. And so, but we really we need to be around each other. So do something to make sure that you're staying connected to other people. The last one is stick to it. To make a habit, you have to stick to it. There's a book that Malcolm Gladwell wrote that said it takes 10,000 hours of practice to become an expert in something. Now, there's some data out there that's saying that's not necessarily true, but the point remains. In order to achieve something, we have to do it over and over and over and over and over again. That's how it becomes a habit. And I wish I could say how many days it takes to achieve a new habit. There used to be studies that says it takes 30 days, or studies that says it takes 40 days, or studies that take 21 days. I have no idea how many days it takes to make something a habit, but I know it takes today. I know that if we're going to make something a habit, we've got to do it today. So stick to it. I'm not great at journaling. I always want to be a journaler. Some of you are like journalers, and you've got like beautiful journals, right? You draw pictures in them and you have all this stuff in them. I am not that way. You can't read my writing. I can't read my writing. And I do like to actually write out of a journal instead of type a journal. But I wanted to journal every day this year. I made it 6 days. I didn't stick to it. I didn't take my own. Last week I said that most of these messages are for me. This one's for me. I really wanted to journal. And what I have to do is I have to get back to it. Right? I have to stick to it. It's why if we set a small thing, it's easier to stick to than setting a big one. But stick to it. Keep coming back to it. And like I said, the reward isn't going to happen right away. It's going to take some time. But eventually, if we do something enough and it becomes that habit, and all of a sudden you realize that over the last 40 days, you've read 40 Bible verses when you've never read any, and now you're remembering some of those Bible verses, that's when the reward kicks in. When you realize that you've been praying every day for 6 months, and all of a sudden you start seeing God answering your prayers and you feel closer to him, and maybe you're hearing from him in a different way. Now all of a sudden, the reward starts happening. When you've done a push-up every day and now you're doing 20 of them, that's when the reward starts happening, right? And so it's gonna take some time, but when we stick to it, we're able to see that we're starting to grow, that we're starting to get that reward. And again, I don't know how long it takes, but I do know this. In Galatians 6:9, it says, "Do not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we reap a harvest if we don't give up." I love that, because a harvest takes time. You don't plant a seed and then harvest it the next day. There's a growing season, there's a watering season, there's a season for all of it, and then the harvest comes, but we have to keep going. We can't give up. So I want you to think about one thing, either a bad habit that you want to break or a healthy habit that you want to start. And I want you to see if you can identify these areas and how you can do that. What do you think about yourself? What is the tape you play in your brain about who you are? If I were to say, it's just like me to always fill in the blank, what's the answer to that question? That answer is how you see yourself. It's just like me to always quit, I'm a quitter. It's just like me to always fail, I'm a failure. It's just like me to always whatever. That answer is how you see yourself. Now, that may have been planted in you by a friend or a family member or a coach or the enemy, because remember, you do have an enemy who hates you, and he does not want you to find this kind of freedom. And so you may have to do some work between you and God. You may need a counselor or a recovery ministry or just a group of friends that can help you rewire what you think about yourself. But begin that process. And then when you think of your habits, start small. How do I want to start? How can I break that down into smaller and smaller and smaller increments? I remember when I first got sober, by the way, this works this way as well. I don't know how I'm going to be sober 20 days. I don't know how I'm going to be sober 20 years. I didn't know I was going to be sober 20 minutes. And there were times where I literally had to say, I can do an hour. I can do another hour. I can do another hour. And then that became 24 of those hours, right? And now it's been 20 years. But by doing it small, it works the same way. You may not be able to think about a whole day. So break it down into smaller increments. Stack those habits. What do you already do habitually that you can start adding new things to so that you can grow in those areas? Stay connected. Who can you find in your groups, in your life that you can bring in that are gonna help you on this pathway, and stick to it. Don't quit, don't give up. Remember, the pain is right now, but the reward is coming, and that reward is gonna be beautiful. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this church. Thank you for all they do in this community. Thank you for all you're doing in the lives of the people that are here. Thank you for the people that you've brought here together today. God, I do pray that for anyone who's struggling with any part of their life, Lord, that they would seek you and glorify you, no matter how you work, no matter what you choose to do. God, you may choose to use a miracle right in this moment, and we would glorify you for that. You might choose to use a small group or a group of friends or Celebrate Recovery or a therapist. It doesn't matter, God. However you work, we know it's you, and so we'll give you the glory. Jesus, we thank you that you loved us so much that you decided that you would die for us so that we could be made right with you. Help us daily to look to you as the person that sets our identity. Would you allow us to grow this year, to start these healthy habits, and help us to stop the hurtful ones that are hurting us and those around us? Jesus, we love you. It's in your name we pray. Amen.